Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the November 5, 2018 meeting of the University Heights City Council. Mrs. Thomas, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Rock?
Here.
Mr. Wiseman?
Here.
Mr. Sims?
Here.
Mrs. Pardee?
Here.
Mr. Ertl?
Here.
Mrs. Cameron?
Here.
Mrs. Wise?
Here.
Will all those who are able please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I have a couple of comments.
Okay, very good.
Will we approve them? Sorry.
Take your time.
This is just for clarity. On page 6 of 9, under Director's Reports, in the first paragraph, Finance Director James Goff reported that the city is currently having all employees update and complete their form fire survey. I wasn't sure what that was.
Mr. Goff, I think you could probably explain what form fire is.
It is a form fire survey?
Yeah, Form Fire is the name of the survey and the online company we're using for it.
Okay.
What it is the health insurance questionnaire for our insurance bill.
Okay, that's not one I was familiar with. When it came up in the minutes, I thought, is that accurate? So, thank you. Then, on page 8 of 9, just the very first line, communications and civic engagement. Mike Cook reported that the last issue of the paper newsletter, period. So we probably just want to say the last issue of the paper newsletter has gone out or something. Just again, for clarity for anybody reading the minutes.
Yes, I do believe that Mr. Cook did actually say exactly that, though. The last issue, period. But I understand what you mean.
I want to make it readable. Thank you. And then I will move with the amendments to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have motion by Mrs. Pardee, second by, I'll go with Mrs. Weiss. Is there any discussion? Any further revisions or corrections?
I have a question.
Mr. Sims.
Just as far as the attendance is concerned, I'm listed as absent, but with a 7:04 p.m. Designation behind my name. Should it be present with that designation?
I think that changed for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Sims. Thank you, Mrs. Thomas. Anything further? If there is none, is there, no, if there's none, Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Mr. Wiseman?
Aye.
Mr. Sims?
Aye.
Mrs. Pardee?
Aye.
Mr. Ertl?
Aye.
Mrs. Cameron? Aye. Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Okay, very good. Minutes are approved. The next portion of the meeting is the comments from the audience. We ask that speakers limit themselves to 5 minutes. This is by ordinance. The section of the meeting, the total time allowed is 15 minutes. We often are liberally construe that. So if there's anyone here who wishes to address the city at this time, such as Mr. Smalley, please come on up to the podium and state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Smalley. I'm with the Illuminating Company. You might know my predecessor, Terry Colleen. I took over for him in end of May, beginning of June. Excuse me. I just want to give you a chance to meet me, put a name and a face. You have my contact information. A little background on me. I've been with the company 11 years. I started off in engineering, so I'm pretty familiar with the system. It's my first foray up into the limited company, so getting to know the people, getting to know the territory a little bit. But electrically, I know the system. I know how it works, and I can handle whatever comes our way. little bit. I also handed out a one-page information sheet on the customer assistance programs, stuff covering PIP and heat, especially with the winter months coming up. So if you have any constituents that are talking that they're having a little trouble or anything, please give them this information. The sooner the better, because as soon as they get shut-off notice, they have to pay in full before we can do anything. And then we're looking for third-party help to get them to pay the bill so that we can get them on these programs. I know the PIP program it's either 10% of the income or $10 a month, whatever's greater, for unlimited use of electricity. Also want to go over storms. So our kind of priorities when we have storms come through is make safe work. So basically what we'll do is any wire downs is our first priority because we don't want anybody getting hurt. Public safety is number one. After that, we have identified critical circuits. So you have your hospitals, police stations, fire stations, pumping stations, and in tomorrow's case, polling locations that we have identified that help make more of a priority to get them back up and running. Then we go simple math of largest outage to the smallest. So whatever the largest outage is, we're going to work on first. Being tomorrow is election day, there is a cold front coming through. We are staffing. We're going to be working 16 hours tomorrow, keeping everybody in just in case. So if something does happen to one of your polling locations and you lose electricity, because if you have my contact information, please give me a call. We'll get out there and we want to remedy it as quickly as possible, especially on a sensitive day. So, any questions for me?
Any questions, Mr. Smalley?
To access most of these programs, you go to the Ohio Development Service Agency?
Yeah.
Which is at the state.
It's not our,
Right.
I believe 50 groups can go through us.
Industry.
Yes, or we have a group that deals with it, but yeah, a lot of it is state funded stuff, and a lot of this stuff works for gas as well. This is specifically for electric, but they're similar programs or the same programs out there for gas for your constituents.
Thank you.
Anything else for Mr. Smalley? Very good. Well, Mr. Smalley, thank you for coming and addressing us here in the city of University Heights. And, it's been a pleasure working with you the short time you've been in this position now, and we look forward to working with you as needed. Hopefully not too long, but certainly promptly as needed when needed. So thank you for being here tonight. Is there anyone else here who would care to address the city at this time? Well, if there is no one else, then we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the reports and communications from the mayor and taking of action. Tomorrow is election day. Please remember to go vote. If you requested an absentee ballot and you have not returned it yet, it is now too late to mail it. Your best course of action to make sure your vote counts is to take it down to the Board of Elections office at Euclid and East 30th and drop it off there before 7:30 p.m. tomorrow. Do not bring your absentee ballot to the polls. They will not and cannot accept it. If you requested an absentee ballot and then show up at the polls, you will be required to vote provisionally, even if you did not complete and submit the absentee ballot. If you experience any problems at the polls, seek assistance, but be sure to at least complete a provisional ballot. If there is a line at the polls on election night, you are allowed to vote so long as you were in line by closing time. They are not allowed to turn you away. The bid documents for the new chairlift at City Hall are complete, and the project will be advertised for bids on November 8th and November 15th. A bid walkthrough with contractors will be on November 20th at 10 a.m. here at City Hall. Bid opening will be November 26th at noon. The project is specified to be constructed after normal working hours at City Hall, that is on nights and weekends, so that business may function as usual during the day. Once we have our best and lowest bidder, we will discuss and finalize the actual schedule. Since the mass shooting at Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, the University Heights Police Department has been working closely with Jewish Federation Security to help ensure the safety of our residents here in University Heights, especially in close proximity of religious sites around our community. On a similar note, by order posted today in my capacity as mayor and safety director, backpacks, duffel bags, and oversized bags are hereby prohibited in the city council chambers. People carrying such bags are to return them to their cars, or in the alternative, they may check them at the police station. There was a fire in our community on Saturday, October 27th in the duplex at the corner of Tullamore and Brockway Roads. The structure underwent substantial damage. 2 families lost their homes. The following Sunday, the next day, we opened our city hall to accept donations from the community, and the responses were overwhelming. I am proud of the care, thoughtfulness, and generosity of our University Heights and Greater Heights neighbors who came out with donations of clothing, gift cards, and money. Our conference room downstairs still runneth over. As soon as these families have secured new homes, we will let it be known on social media. For those of you who have expressed interest in donating housewares and furniture, thank you once more for your generosity. Last Thursday evening, we had Diane Bickett from the Solid Waste District speak to our residents on the new limits on recycling. The turnout was very good. The evening was a double header as even more people came out to hear the panel discussion on issue 1. I moderated the panel made up of Amy Hanauer of Policy Matters Ohio, Representative Janine Boyd, who were both in favor, and Assistant County Prosecutor Kevin Iliatro and Rob Walgate of the American Policy Roundtable, who were both there to speak in opposition. I believe both sides got out some excellent points, pro and con, and I personally found the discussion clarifying, and I know others who attended told me the same. Big thanks go out to our communications and civic engagement coordinator, Mike Cook, who planned the events, and our special projects coordinator, Rachel Mullen, who was on site with Mike to implement these events. Last Tuesday, we had our audit exit conference. Officially, the results of our 2017 audit will not be released for at least another 2 weeks. However, I am pleased to report that the audit was actually completed. This, after this administration inherited a finance office that had not done a reconciliation of the city's books in over a year. I'm also pleased to report that the only report-level finding brought to our attention by the auditors at the exit conference was the fact that the city failed to complete timely reconciliations in 2017. And this, of course, we already do. And indeed, reconciliations of this year's books did not begin immediately either, not under the finance office inherited from the previous administration. Only after we cleaned house were we able to begin putting the city back on track. I want to thank our finance director, James Goff, who joined our administration in July, together with our deputy finance director, Rita K. Drew, who initially worked as a contractor beginning April 2018 to begin reconstructing all of 2017's books, together with finance associate Denise Ballant, who arrived in May, initially to help out on a temporary part-time basis, only to find herself running the finance office between the termination of the interim finance director and the installation of Mr. Goff. These 3 people made a Herculean effort to save this city and the previous administration from far worse findings, and they are now implementing better practices here in the city. So, James and Denise and Rita, thank you all very much on behalf of the City University.
Mayor, I appreciate that, and I know my staff appreciates that you recognize as well.
You're welcome, James. You know, paper never freezes. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I'm hitting the screen too many times, so it's not going to catch up. right, on time. So, okay. Very good. November 1st was Gabriel Sidney Brown Day here in the city of University Heights. Gabe is a third generation resident or member of our community here in University Heights, and is also an actor in Les Miserables, now playing at Lighthouse Square. The standards for implementation of the new logo are in draft form, together with a draft plan for the rollout of the logo throughout the community. If you already have a keychain and want the next new items bearing the logo, then please attend the upcoming Civic Awards dinner. All attendees will receive a goodie bag full of new logo items. The Civic Awards dinner will be next Wednesday, November 14th, at the Jardine Room at John Carroll University. Ticket sales are going well, and there are still tickets available. I recommend securing your seats soon. They may be purchased on eventbrite.com, but you may also contact Rachel Mullen or Mike Cook for more information. Please also contact Rachel Mullen if you desire a kosher meal at the dinner, as this must be ordered in advance. With respect to the logo, I want to take this opportunity to publicly thank our administration steering committee for their dedication throughout the process. So big thanks go out to Patrick Grogan-Myers, who headed up the administration's steering committee, together with Mike Cook, Kyle Coughlin, Stephen Doksha, Susan Drucker, Sheila Hubman, Marianne Lash, Kate Malone, John Rock, Steve Sims, and Michelle Weiss. I would also like to thank the dozens who participated in the stakeholders meeting, which was essentially a one-night focus group for Guide Studio to interview and conduct exercises with. I will be attending my second meeting of the Planning Commission this Thursday, County's Planning Commission, that is, this Thursday, and I want to thank our County Executive, Armin Budish, for his appointment of me to the Heights seat on the board, and to our County Council for their confirmation of the appointment. I look forward to representing University Heights, Shaker Heights, Cleveland Heights, and East Cleveland, all at the county level. There is a public meeting of the Taylor Road Corridor Study. The study, Taylor Road Corridor Study, will help the City of Cleveland Heights and the City of University Heights identify ways to make Taylor Road safer and more desirable for people walking, biking, and taking transit. In addition to analysis of Taylor Road, two topics will require study in more depth: the Cedar-Taylor Business District and the Hebrew Academy and surrounding neighborhood. Potential solutions and alternatives will be prioritized based on feasibility and community input. Learn more about the project's overview and schedule here. The upcoming meeting is in November 2018. It is November 15th, day after the Civic Engagement Dinner, at 7 p.m. It is at Cleveland Heights City Hall, not here, at 47th Circle in Cleveland Heights. Project staff will conduct a public meeting to present existing conditions and gather input on concerns and priorities, and everyone here is encouraged to attend. A week from this Friday, November 16th, the city will be hosting a giveaway of 150 turkeys for Thanksgiving. The turkeys are provided by 188 Ohio Compart, Workers' Compensation Administrator. I'm happy to report that Jay-Z Church will be assisting in the administration of the turkey giveaway, and the turkeys not given away that day will be donated forward to needy families in other communities. Finally, this coming Monday, our city observes Veterans Day. Our city offices will be closed that day, and garbage pickup will be one day later all week. This concludes my report. We'll turn now to the regular agenda. The first item on the amended agenda is a motion to immediately hold an executive session for the purpose of discussing real estate matters. Is there a motion?
Second.
Okay, a motion by Councilman Sims, a second by Councilwoman Weiss. If there is no discussion, Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Wiseman?
Aye.
Mr. Sims?
Aye.
Mrs. Pardee?
Aye.
Mr. Erdl?
Aye.
Mrs. Cameron? Aye. Mrs. Weiss?
Aye.
Very good, then we are now going into executive session. We will need to turn off the video camera at this point, and we will resume with video coverage after the executive session. Also, we need to make a decision as to whether we are staying here and sending folks downstairs, keeping in mind that the conference room is full of clothing and really isn't suitable for a meeting, or these folks can stay here and we can all crowd into my office.
Either your office
Or the finance office. So we can do either.
I'm fine moving.
Yeah, okay. Then we'll go downstairs so you can all stay seated and we'll be back. Okay, is there a motion to exit executive session and resume the regular portion of the meeting?
So moved.
Second. Motion by Mr. Wiseman, second by Mr. Rock. If there's no discussion, Mrs. Thomas, we call the roll.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Mr. Wiseman?
Aye.
Mr. Sims?
Aye.
Mrs. Pardee?
Aye.
Mr. Erdl?
Aye.
Mrs. Cameron? Aye. Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Okay, we are back in the regular session. The next item on the agenda is item B, ordinance 2018-63, authorizing the release of a lien of special assessments relating to certain Cleveland, Cuyahoga County Port Authority Special Assessment Tax Increment Revenue Bond Series 2001, University of Ohio Public Parking Garage Project, and Cleveland, Cuyahoga County Port Authority Subordinate Tax Increment Revenue Bond Series 2001B, University of Ohio Public Parking Garage Project on emergency and passage. I'll take a moment here to speak on this, and basically, I do not think that there is any reason to get ahead of the process. That we have put this ordinance up for multiple readings. This ordinance is ready to go once everything else is in place. And we as a city, I think, will be ready to take this off the table and vote on it once everything else is in place and ready to go to everyone's satisfaction. I know that there are a lot of pieces in motion. I know that those pieces are not yet in place. We should not want to get ahead of the process. We should be working together and in coordinating that effort. It would appear to be appropriate here to again, table this ordinance until everything is ready and in place, and then we can, it will be ready to go to be voted on at the appropriate time. But I welcome further comment from any members of council covering anything I didn't just touch on. Okay, is there a motion?
Mayor, I would move that ordinance 2018-63 authorizing the release of the lien on the special assessments relating to certain Cleveland, Cuyahoga County Port Authority Special Assessment Tax Increment Revenue Bond Series 2001 University Heights, Ohio Public Parking Garage Project and Cleveland, Cuyahoga County Port Authority Subordinate Tax Increment Revenue Bond Series 2001E, University Heights Public Parking Garage Project, be tabled.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Sims. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Wiseman. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Mrs. Thomas, we call the roll.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Mr. Wiseman?
Aye.
Mr. Sims?
Aye.
Mrs. Pardee?
Aye.
Mr. Erdl?
Aye.
Mrs. Cameron? Mrs. Wise?
Okay, ordinance is tabled. Next item on the agenda is item C, motion to declare 3633 Tullamore Road, front of parcel number 722-05-021, a public nuisance. I can go ahead and speak on this, especially since Mr. McReynolds could not be here today. But as referenced earlier, this is the site of the fire that occurred a little over a week ago. I do have from the building commissioner's report briefly, which would be read later, a large devastating house fire destroyed much of the two-family home located at 3633 Tullamore /2204 Brockway Roads. The building is smoke and fire damage throughout the living areas, along with broken windows, many damaged wood members, and holes in the roof. Based on these observations, I'm declaring the structure to be a nuisance and uninhabitable. I've met with the owner and has been meeting with contractors to secure the home and get estimates for restoration. That all said, the house has they obviously listed some substantial damage. The families that were living there are looking for new homes and are not waiting for this house to be rehabbed in order to find a new place to live. It is our understanding that there is no insurance on the house, and that any renovation that would be done by this owner is going to be something that would be done secured by other financing or other resources other than insurance proceeds. So that would be where we are at the moment. Is there a motion or is there any discussion? Mr. West.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, excuse me. So first of all, I just want to express my shock that this homeowner did not have insurance on the house. Homeowner's insurance is not the most expensive item in the world. And when you're renting, it's a little more expensive, but not prohibitive. And personally, I have sat through many a meeting this year where landlords told me about how they love University Heights and they're responsible landowners, they take care of the property. And this guy did none of those things. And now we're looking at a house that might not get fixed because this landlord is thinking, well, I have to pay every dime of the repair costs. And I think that's probably the only reason why we're considering declaring this a nuisance. As a go-forward strategy, I mean, I'm on board with this and I take the building commissioner's word for it, but as a go-forward strategy, I would think that at least he would prepare a report that has a personal inspection and some pictures that we can view to bolster our idea that the property is a nuisance. Again, I'm sure this is a nuisance, and I'm glad that the administration is moving as quickly as they are to sort of put us in the position where we can push forward with this and make sure the house is taken care of as much as we can. But I think if we transmit that to the building commissioner next time we talk about a nuisance, easily he could go through the structure and have some pictures taken and such. But again, I'm on board with this, but I'm not so happy with the landlord who decides that it's not worth the extra $1,000 a year for him to get homeowner's insurance. Now we're the ones holding the bag. So I appreciate the administration's efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. I would note just for the record that Mr. McReynolds has jury duty this week, and he's been excused from attending this meeting in connection with that. So he is not here this evening to answer further questions. I know that when he went out to take photographs, that is when he found the landlord with at least one of the contractors, and for the first time in some time, the doors had actually been locked to the house. So photographs from the inside would probably require some kind of administrative search warrant at this time, even though there are windows on the third level that haven't been boarded up, and windows on the second level that appear to have boards that are not exactly secure but are simply leaning against the windows from the inside. Probably could just be pushed right over if somebody were to go up there with a ladder. All the same. I would also add that I did speak with the landlord himself, told him that this would be on the agenda for this evening, told him when this meeting was, if he wanted to come and speak on this, and also that if we did pass this evening, we wouldn't be out there with bulldozers tomorrow morning, but that we are doing this to protect the health, safety, and welfare of our community, and to give us the necessary step for having additional options at our disposal for taking down the house if necessary, although that is not the only option and would not really be, hopefully, the preferred option if the house is in fact salvageable. Mrs. Barton.
And Mayor, I agree. We prefer to see homes rehabbed and continued in use, but I also have to think about that neighborhood that has experienced so much in the terms of houses that have gone into foreclosure and gone vacant and had to be taken down for one reason or another. That particular neighborhood especially, I think, deserves to see that the city administration is moving with decision and determination and has a plan for this rather than sitting back. So I'm pleased with that.
Thank you, Mrs. Brady.
So I'll make the motion to declare 3633 Tullamore Road a public nuisance. Second.
And motion by Mrs. Hardy, second by Mrs. Cameron. Is there any further discussion? If there is no further discussion, Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Mr. Wiseman?
Aye.
Mr. Sims?
Aye.
Mrs. Pardee?
Aye.
Mr. Erdl?
Aye.
Mrs. Cameron? Aye. Mrs. Wise? Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Next item is item D, approving and authorizing entering into contract with Parks Tree Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $67,311 for the 2018-3 tree pruning and removal program. Mr. Corning, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ken. This was a contract for pruning trees through this winter. You may recall it covers the area from Eaton to Warrensville and from Fairmont north up to Hillbrook. So it's a good portion of the city. We've looked at almost every tree on every street, and it has a formula in here for pruning them. Bids were opened on Friday, October 26th, and Park Tree Incorporated of East Lake was the low at $67,311. Parks Tree currently has a contract with us doing tree trimming on Raymont, Washington. They've done tree contracts with us in the past, and I'm recommending that we enter into this contract with Parks Tree for this tree pruning program this year.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Corning. Mrs. Pardee?
Well, can we discuss adding a little bit extra? Were you going to bring that up? I was approached by a resident who's not on a street currently on the tree pruning set of streets, but has a need that might be more immediate. And when I talked with Mr. Corning, I found that because this is not to exceed, the bid is not to exceed, and the streets are very specific, we would not be able to do anything in the interim until this contract comes up again. Whereas we may have some neighborhoods with that, or some neighbors that might need some work. So there was a thought about perhaps setting aside an additional amount.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah,
I was thinking
I'll just
5,000, which is like 7.5% of the bid.
I'll just comment on that briefly. That's certainly within council's purview to increase the approved amount for expenditure, and giving the administration and the department have some discretion as to whether to engage the contractor to spend those amounts or not.
Right, and that would then give us the ability to add on a few things as you suggested, whether it's because it's something that's been brought to our attention through what you just described, or whether it's something that we or Parks discover in the process where something wasn't specifically part of the bid, but it would make sense to add this item or that item here or there. And with the not to exceed language, if we're following to a T, technically we couldn't do that. So it would be, there is something to be said for approving a little bit extra to allow us some flexibility in executing the project.
I have a question.
Yes.
Actually, I have two questions. But on this last point, I agree that it's important to set aside some level of resources to maybe do some things that are outside of this bid, but I wouldn't want to append it to this bid because this bid was a public bid. It had specific specifications, and that's what the parties responded to. So we wanted to set aside $5,000. It wouldn't even have to be bid because of the level of the contract. So I would just ask us to take that into consideration. And then I had a question regarding what was put before us. I know we received like 54 pages of trees, and I think a total of 913 trees. Is that the
That's the number of sites. You'll find that quite a few of those sites are vacant, or the trees were recently pruned and we don't have to do anything to them. So there's probably close to 700 trees on this contract.
Okay.
Out of the 900 sites listed in the document.
Because that's a question that I had, how many trees are being pruned for this amount of money. And I'm not sure that you are aware, but I had asked a question about past tree pruning contracts and the amounts. You didn't get that?
No, I did not.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sims. Does anybody else have anything further to add? Or anything they would care to offer with respect to the proposed approval? Mrs. White.
Well, I think there's just a question. So if somebody calls you on kind of an off season where you're not in the middle of the pruning that says, I have a lawn tree that's hanging over the sidewalk and when we walk, under it, it's hitting people or something like that. Do you call the service or does the city do it?
If it's on the tree lawn, the city does it. If it's in bad enough shape that we consider it an emergency, we do it under emergency, in which case I would go to the mayor for authorization to do it. Other than that, it goes onto a list, and that list is what we bid when we do it. So you might recall we have an earlier bid also that Park Tree is doing, which is Raymont, Washington area. Those are hazardous silver maples that have decayed to the point where the limbs are breaking off. So we did have enough time still to put a contract together and bid it. So it could go either way.
So I do have one further question.
Sure.
So in the case of the concern that Vice Mayor Pardee raised, that person could really be referred to you and you still could do the work, but you would have to get authorization from the mayor.
That's correct.
Okay, so I mean, we do have a provision for handling those types of situations.
Right.
Okay.
I think the concern in the past has been that, you have a $1,000 expenditure here and a $6,000 expenditure there, and all of a sudden you have a new kitchen. And so if we're anticipating that we may have some expenditures related to the work that is done by this company and that it is above and beyond what was bid, that it be brought to council all at the same time and you know exactly what amount of money is going to be spent and what it's for.
Mrs. Karen, go.
Yes, but Mr. McConville, isn't that what we do now?
Well, I think it is, but I mean, I'm just echoing the importance of that or pointing out the importance of that and that we not treat these kinds of expenditures as just being something that's within the mayor's spending authority and he should go out and just spend the money if he already knows that there's going to be an expenditure that is going to occur. That it's a best practice and it avoids the confusion about whether something consists of 6 small projects or one large project divided into 6 pieces. If he just brings what he knows he wants to spend to the table all at one time.
I think, Mr. McCartney, then the question from me is it more effective to provide a little more funding to the contractor that wins the bid, or to have your people go out and do this? Are we providing the same level of service? Do you put people off because your service people, you don't have the time?
Well, these trees would not be done by service people. These trees would still be done by whoever I have under contract at the time.
This 42-inch oak would have to
That
be.
would have to be done, and I
So
would be,
the next
my first
person.
request would be to Park Tree to ask them if they would hold their contract price for a 42-inch oak or as close to that as what we have in the contract. If they were willing to do that, I would give them the work.
Outside of the contract.
Well, unfortunately, when they bill me, it's going to be in the contract. It's all going to be mixed together in one bill unless I separate it.
All right.
Otherwise, I have to talk to different tree
And
contractors.
I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, I think if we're going to have additional work, it should be outside of what's in the bid. There should be a separate invoice.
Okay, so can we ask for another bid for a buffer type for a board? Would that be the best way to do it? Because we don't want to go back for the original bid, right?
Right, because that's already been a public approved. entity?
I believe you could still add to this contract and include it. I don't think it's necessary that you rebid it separately.
I'm not suggesting that we bid it at all.
No.
I'm saying approve this contract and then we set aside some amount of money for tree pruning that doesn't fall under the contract. And you could select whoever you want to do it. It could be Park, it could be Van, whoever is ready and available to do the work. But if this contract was bid in a certain way, and my understanding is it would be, it would be improper to change the terms in any way at this stage. So, I mean, I'm not suggesting anything.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Vote on this and set aside whatever number we pick.
well, I see your point, Mr. Sims, and, it could be that in the future, when we put these out to bid, that we could even put in our specs that they should anticipate some kind of overage for additional trees that we identified during the course of their execution of the contract. And since we didn't do that here, I can see why you would, I can see the point of your position.
Yeah, I'm just being technical.
Sure. No,
Van Buren may
That's a good point.
feel different.
And I also like your idea that we go ahead and just authorize some additional money to then do exactly that, but not necessarily commit it to parks or to this particular agreement.
Yeah, I like that.
Now, as far as that goes, should we go ahead, Luke, put this up for a motion, and then hear a second motion? Do we need to add this to the agenda that we want to potentially authorize an additional sum of money?
Yeah, I would add it to the agenda.
Right, okay.
And here's a second motion.
Okay, so then I suggest, with that in mind, that somebody make a motion to approve item D, and then after we have voted on that, somebody could make a motion to amend the agenda to consider an additional agenda item, next being that additional authorization. We vote on that, then somebody make a motion for that additional authorization. Okay, very good. Do we have,
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
yes, I would recommend that we approve and authorize entering into a contract with Park Tree Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $67,311 for the 2018-3 tree pruning and removal program.
Very good. We have a motion by Mrs. Cameron. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Round. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Mr. Weissman?
Aye.
Mr. Sims?
Aye.
Mrs. Pardee?
Aye.
Mr. Erdo?
Aye.
Mrs. Cameron? Aye. Mrs. Weiss?
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Yes, Mrs.
I'd
Pardee.
like to make a motion to add to the agenda.
Okay, we have a motion to add to the agenda, and what would you like to add?
I would like to add a motion approving and authorizing the set aside of $5,000. Well, an amount not to exceed $5,000 for additional tree pruning and removal during 2018.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Do we have to add it to the agenda?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
My
Yes.
first motion was to add to the agenda, so
Okay.
I make a motion to add something to the agenda.
Yes, and that item, and then that item being the second item that you,
That I made the motion for.
okay.
Okay,
Is that sufficiently clear for the record?
thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Thomas. Okay. So a motion by Mrs. Pardee. Is there a second to that motion?
I second
the agenda. Okay.
Yeah, Mr.
Second by Mr. Sims. Okay. There's no discussion. Mrs. Thomas, we call the roll on adding that item to the agenda.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Weissman?
Aye.
Mr. Sims?
Aye.
Mrs. Pardee?
Aye.
Mr. Erdo?
Aye.
Mrs. Cameron? Aye. Mrs. Weiss?
Aye.
Okay, very good. That passes. So the next item on the agenda is the motion to add an additional sum for the purpose of tree pruning removal.
Not to exceed $5,000.
Not to exceed $5,000.
2018 for tree pruning and removal. Is that sufficient?
Yes.
Okay, that's the motion.
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion by Mrs. Pardee, a second by Mr. Sims. Mrs. Thomas, for the sake of the record, do you have The motion, okay, very good. All right, is there any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Mrs. Wiseman?
Aye.
Mr. Sims?
Aye.
Mrs. Pardee?
Aye.
Mr. Erdl?
Aye.
Mrs. Cameron? Aye. Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Very good. Turns out there's more than one way to prune a tree. Thank you, thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is item E, Resolution 2018-65, accepting 2018 Bureau Workers' Compensation Safety Intervention Grant in the amount of $26,523.18 for protective equipment. This is an emergency. Chief Perko, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, this is a grant through BWC for a power load system for our power cuts. This will be going to be installed in the new ambulance. I'd like to credit firefighter Chad Raker, who's one of our newer firefighters that assisted me with this grant.
Okay, very good. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Perko, or Chief Perko?
Yes.
Mrs. Cameron, you.
What are you talking about? What is this piece of equipment?
This equipment mounts inside of the ambulance, and it takes our cots that are power assisted and helps lift the cot into the back of the ambulance.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Rock.
I remember when we were looking at this ambulance purchase a year ago, and that came up, and you mentioned there are grants for the cot loading system, so I'm glad we waited, and I'm glad we submitted and got the grant. It's excellent news. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Mr. Wiseman.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief, and thank you to the firefighter who found this. So we're getting $19,000, and we're paying $6,600 basically to augment the grant.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yeah, the total grant being for $26,523, there was a match, and our match is the $6,630.
Okay, and is that to the finance director, is that amount in the budget? Was that included in our original cost for the ambulance?
That's in the next appropriation ordinance. That's literally the next item on the agenda.
But we have the money.
We have the money.
Okay, we just have to move it around.
Yes.
Got it. All right, so now the ambulance was 179, is that right?
171.
Okay, plus this 6,000. Got it. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Wiseman. Any other questions for Chief Perko?
So the match was about 31%, 30%? Was it a required percentage? I'm just curious. Or does it vary sometimes?
It varies based on population.
Well, we've gotten these hydraulic cots before through the Bureau Workers' Comp, so this is great.
Yeah, this was the same grant from 2014. We received 2 power cats and 1 load system then. So this is the additional load system for the second squad now.
Great work, thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mrs. Perko. Any other comments, or is there a motion?
I'll move to authorize 2018-65, accepting the 2018 Bureau Workers' Compensation Safety and Prevention Grant in the amount of $26,523.18 for protective equipment non-emergency.
Very good. We have a motion by Mrs. Weiss. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Cameron. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Goodrich?
It's an emergency.
Oh, excuse me, thank you. It is on emergency, so there'll be 2 votes. The first is on the suspension of the rules.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Mr. Wiseman?
Aye.
Mr. Sims?
Aye.
Mrs. Pardee?
Aye.
Mr. Erdl?
Aye.
Mrs. Cameron? Aye. Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Very good. And then on the main motion.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Mr. Wiseman?
Aye.
Mr. Sims?
Aye.
Mrs. Pardee?
Aye.
Mr. Erdl?
Aye.
Mrs. Cameron? Aye. Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Very good. Thank you, Chief Perko. Strong. Next item is item F, ordinance 2018-66, approving supplemental appropriations and authorizing the transfer of funds from the general fund to the street and fire pension funds, and this is on emergency. And Mr. Goff, you have the floor.
We've got several different items that are in this appropriation ordinance, kind of just running down the list in order. The additional $16,000 for the police department is actually for our share for half of the year for Shaker Heights Municipal Court, since that happens to be currently in the police budget for this current year. Pool, as we tried to move some of the money that was in the pool, we had some personnel costs that we didn't originally anticipate, so we're adding back to that. That's the $5,000, and then the $16,500 is money that was in the original budget for a sand filter for the pool. That's an item that I understand is critical from our service director. I refer to him for any more information about that. And then for when it comes to the planning commission, board of zoning appeals, and the civil service commission. When I was making the payments out for the architectural review board for their money for stipends when they attend meetings, I came to my understanding that we might not have paid out the paid stipends for those commissions for last year and this year, and that's an item that a couple of these did not have money in those personnel sides of their budget, so it's setting aside money to go back and pay those. The city engineer, that is from our engineering costs far exceeding the estimates that we had earlier in the budget. And that's really a matter of we incur the cost as projects go on. And I didn't realize it was that high until we went back and paid some, we received notification of some past invoices from earlier in the year, and it really got large at that point. So that's trying to pay off, I believe it was about $53,000 need to pay the balance, and then trying to set aside some money for additional for the rest of the year. General services, that money is extra cost for our general insurance liability premiums for liability and casualty, since our year for that starts October 1st. And we're taking the money for the general fund out of the money that's currently set aside as transfers to other funds. And then when we step down to the law enforcement fund, there are a couple of items that the police department wants to spend money on. That where we're going to take money is from the ongoing fund balance. We have several special revenue funds that were grant funds that we've built up a balance in there for whatever reason of past accounting. And this is going to be spending some of that down, items that the fund would otherwise be allowed to do in terms of equipment. And then the last item is the capital improvement fund. I see here, this is actually an old version. Somehow that did not get updated. And we'll have to get that change, the rest of the money changed for the next meeting. The money that we have in here at the moment is money, $20,000 each for 3 cars for the building department, for the added inspectors that were added to the building department. We still need to go through the process of learning exactly what we're going to purchase, how, but that's $60,000 for that, and then the other $26,000 is the appropriations for our local share and for the grant dollars for the grant part you just mentioned. The other items in here are transfers from the general fund to respective funds.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Goff. Are there any questions, Mr. Goff?
I have one question. You said there was something that needed to be corrected?
Yes, some additional money in regarding land acquisition in the capital improvement fund.
Okay, so we won't be voting on that tonight. You'll come back with it. But I'm not sure what you're saying.
It's something that can wait until the next council meeting.
Okay, because it's not in.
Yeah, it's not in there.
Okay.
Part of the confusion is I wasn't in my first draft of what I had sent over, and I was out of town
That's fine.
last week.
I just wanted to make sure.
Mayor?
Yes.
I have a question for the law director. I think we can do this. Is it possible to vote on all but one item in this transfer?
You would have to amend.
Right, we could amend it.
You'd have to vote to amend
Okay,
and then approve as amended.
okay.
Okay, very good. Mrs. Weiss.
Since that amount is not the correct amount, can you just summarize which are transfers, which are?
The actual ones for transfers, the dollar amount that's incorrect is the portion for the capital improvement fund. But the transfers, those are all correct. It's $100,000 that's been pre-approved as part of the general fund appropriations. Go from general fund to the street, an additional $100,000, the same situation, go from the general fund to the fire pension fund.
Okay, and can you just restate about the cars?
The cars, we're just in terms of trying to estimate what it might be, is 3 cars at $20,000 a piece.
So like where would that money, do we get the money?
Yes, it's coming out of fund balances at the moment.
Fund balances that, and you do not believe will be depleted by the year?
Yeah, that will not be included by your interest.
Do you know which fund?
Yeah, that's coming out of the capital improvement fund.
That is capital improvement.
Yes, that's part of that. Those 3 cars plus the $26,523.18 for the Bureau Workers' Comp grant is the dollar amount for the capital improvement fund.
That's why I'm confused. That's why I'm confused, not what is here, because,
The additional 95,000.
oh, so there's another 95,000
Yes.
related to law enforcement,
No, related to land acquisition.
land acquisition, okay.
And what haven't we spent in capital improvement that we have $120,000?
That comes from the debt balance that we started the year with, plus all the transfers we made out of the general fund. Don't actually have the report readily available, no, I can run it real quick, but we do have the balances in the capital project fund.
Yeah.
Did we not purchase something in there?
No, this is in addition to previous appropriations. We have the fund balance in there. We've had extra, more money in the capital improvement fund than we've actually needed in terms of fund balance, and that's where this is coming from.
Just for clarification, I know you said that there was a number that was missing here that should have been on here. Is that a number that you can readily get if you were to step up? Well,
Yeah, the 86,000 plus the 95,000 that's missing. For the capital improvement fund. The exact purchase, I prefer not to discuss. It's something we can discuss in the executive session.
certainly, but, okay, I didn't know if there was something missing here and you needed a number that wasn't here, and if it was just simply a matter of going down to finance and getting it.
It's the 86,000, instead of being 86,000, would have been 86,000 plus another 95.
Yeah, very good.
I got 181,523.18. I'm sorry, 181,523.18.
Mr. Wiseman.
4406, the city engineer, that $70,000 is in addition to the salary that the city engineer gets, or that's his salary?
No, that's in addition to. The city engineer gets a small stipend, and then we end up paying GPD partner, GPD Group, which is the firm that he works for, piecemeal for all the engineering projects. And the total invoices has been about $53,000 more than what was budgeted, and then an additional little bit we're trying to set aside for any engineering fees we might incur for the rest of the year.
Right, don't we pay the engineer an actual salary? You say a small stipend, but does he get like an actual salary?
Like $10,000.
Yeah.
And it is like a seven.
Oh, so the budgeted amount, the higher amount I'm thinking of is the budgeted amount that we have for engineering services.
Yes, this is for engineering
So he
services.
gets that amount, and then the rest of the amount goes to GPD for his work list.
For his work, drafting, and any other engineers that they have working on projects.
Okay, so you're saying that we only budgeted him for 53,000, but it's more?
No, the invoices we've already received are $53,000 more than what we had budgeted from that line item.
So what did we budget the engineer to be? Do you remember?
I'd have to go back and pull a couple of.
So this is 7, you say it was 53 more, so we budgeted for 17?
No, 17 is basically what I'm trying to reserve as extra in the general fund in case we have more expenses for the rest of the year.
I guess I'm confused. If we budgeted, the number for the engineer is way higher than $10,000 if I remember.
Yes.
Like 90 or something, right? So
No, it's higher than that.
So you're saying that thus far in 2018, we've received bills for $53,000 more than the total budgetary number for the engineer?
Yes, for stuff that's appropriate for the general fund, and then we also have engineering that runs through the street fund, engineering that runs through sewer, and so on. Engineering for and year-to-date engineering costs. Yeah, I have to get back to you with that. But I have readily available, I don't.
Okay.
But this is for amounts beyond what has previously been budgeted for in the engineering department for non-personnel, meaning what we pay to the firm.
Right. Okay. All right, so I guess as we go into the budgetary process, we'll get a more accurate picture of exactly what this compensation is going to be.
Well,
That's my hope anyway.
You know, there's two components to that compensation. What we pay for a stipend, we know what that's going to be, and then what we end up paying the firm for actual engineering depends upon the number, quantity, and size of projects we do.
No, I understand that, but he's been our engineer for a long time. We'll pretty much should be able to pinpoint exactly what he's going to charge us for the year or next year, right? I mean, the projects don't change that much from year to year.
They really have been a lot higher this year than what was budgeted. In terms of the process we used last year, I don't know.
Well, last year, I think there were some things that didn't even get paid for.
That was part of the issue as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're paying for part of last year.
That, I believe, is the case for some stuff from early in the year.
So we're cleaning things up.
I believe that is the case, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Rollins, thank you, Mayor. Mr. Gar, on this capital improvement fund, other expenditures, I want to go back to that real quick, the $86,523. So that includes the 3 vehicles that we're going to talk about in item I for the building and housing inspectors. But I don't remember ever talking about this in our budget meetings from before. So
There are new items regarding the increased staffing in the building department as we move forward with the plans for the building and housing.
okay, so are those personnel already hired?
Yes.
So what are they using when they're driving?
One starts in, I believe next week, and one started last week. And then the third one is the fact that Patrick Myers will be also acting as an inspector in his capacity as head of the housing department going forward. And these are just a matter of we need to get these purchased as soon as possible rather than waiting until January. And then in terms of how we go about buying them, I know I've been a little bit out of the loop with being gone part of last week.
So why can't we wait until January when there's a new budget in place?
Because they're already on staff.
Well, couldn't we reimburse the mileage if they use a personal vehicle?
I would refer you to the mayor on a decision like that.
Well, we could, and we presently are with respect to Mr. Brown, who started last week. I know that when we brought him on, it was not his preference that he use his personal vehicle, and it was represented to him that we would be attempting to rectify that in short order. We would prefer to have city employees appearing out in the community in city vehicles and not personal vehicles. I think it's a matter of appearance. It makes sense. It gives added authority too that you arrive in a city vehicle as opposed to your own personal vehicle. Also with that, we do have another building inspector who is coming on, I believe on the 21st. I suppose he will probably be using his own vehicle in the short term, but again, that is only intended to be a short-term temporary measure. And finally, I know that there was some desire to simply tackle the inevitable now as opposed to waiting. Mrs. Weiss.
Thank you, Mayor. I was under the impression that the only reason we were hiring building inspectors was because our rental code was going to be updated. And I didn't realize that we actually hired them because we never satisfied the rental agreements, or the new updated rental ordinance. So
I believe that is still something that we are endeavoring to do and working on. I'm sorry, Eric, could you please continue?
no, that's fine, but the revenue from the new rental ordinance was supposed to pay for the new building inspectors, but we don't have that revenue, so how do we pay those building inspectors?
Well, I know it is kind of a chicken and egg situation, but we do also want to ensure that the revenue that we would be, we're in the process of identifying what the costs are going to be for administering the housing program, with the rental inspections in particular, but also the other housing aspects of the housing program, so that we are in a better position to make sure that the fee is rationally related to what it actually costs to provide that service. And with that, we do not as a city have, until we hired Mr. Brown and we have the incoming hire coming in, we do not as a city have inspectors who have certain certifications. Mr. Brown brings in a plumbing certification that previously we were contracting out for, and we will no longer have to contract out for that. There's also an electrical certification that the other inspector is bringing in. We have, basically we have housing inspectors who've been acting as building inspectors, but they don't actually have building inspector credentials. In other cities, the inspectors that we do have on staff are inspectors that would be more appropriately acting in the capacity of doing exterior maintenance, potentially point of sale inspections and so on. But this is going to help out the department in relieving a shortcoming that presently exists in the department. These kinds of inspectors are hard to come by, and I have spent some time attending meetings and conferences and listening to other building commissioners in other cities, where most of the time you end up having to grow your own when it comes to acquiring inspectors with these credentials. And as it turns out, we do have, among the building inspectors we have and have had, one that is on the verge of being able to take a test for a certification, but for whatever reason has not yet, and one that is approaching being able to take that test. But at the same time, there is a deficiency in the building department without having inspectors that have certain credentials, and that is being resolved here. That is a little bit above and beyond the rental inspection program, which was also a subject of why we would need additional inspectors, but this also addresses another deficiency that our city did need to address.
Do you know about how much we've outsourced, how much that costs?
Yes.
Plumbing and the electrical?
I would have to look that up. And I don't know that James would have that number handy.
I'm trying to find it at the moment, see what you can.
And then the other question was, did we have money in the budget to hire the other two new hires, or was this above what we budgeted?
It was above what we budgeted. This was not a new number.
I'm saying somewhere else in personnel.
Right. Yeah. In terms
I can
of,
answer.
in terms
It was
of
not in the budget.
where we find the additional money for that, that is gonna have to come back as a appropriation change later in the year. I have not had a chance to calculate what that needs to be done. In terms of what we've spent so far this year, in terms of outsourced work, plans examiner, we've spent $9,000. Plumbing inspection, we've spent $7,080 so far this year. And we've had higher numbers in prior years.
So, excuse me, Mayor.
Yeah.
If I may inquire, would it be appropriate for me to ask what is the pay for these two new hires?
I don't have that off the top of my head. I know that I have known that, James. You
I have that in the switch spreadsheets here.
I mean, maybe it could be stated in terms of a range that someone of this caliber typically would earn X number of dollars is really all.
If that's what you're looking for, one will be making mid-lower, kind of medium-low $20 per hour range. The other one is very much in the very middle 20s in terms of hourly rate for both of the new inspectors.
And it's full-time hours, 40 hours a week?
Yes.
20, and what was the other one?
The one is low 20s, the other one is mid 20s.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
That's hourly
Yeah,
rate.
I get it. I know what it is. They used to once upon a time,
Yes, Mrs. Fergie.
Mayor,
Yes.
I think you're doing a wonderful job. I think you've done a lot for the city. I think we're going at a wonderful speed. However, I am very uncomfortable approving a motion to go out for bid for 3 new vehicles when we have not seen financial reports since September or earlier, and we have not even started the budgeting process. Now, I've seen some of the early work that Mr. Goff is doing in preparation for the budgeting work, and I think it is going to be stellar in terms of the amount of information, the way it's delivered, our ability to understand and see and get at and assess the budget, but we don't have it yet. So I will not be supporting item I will be asking to table. And I don't know if I won't say I won't vote for it, but I would like to table it because I can't in a good conscience approve that right now without more information. And I think that's what I'm hearing from my colleagues a little bit. I understand that there's a desire to put these new hires in city cars, but I do think they can be paid mileage in the short term while we work this out. So my question is, should we go to I and discuss that fully and then come back to this ordinance that includes part of I, the money funds for I? Or should we just approve this and go ahead and table I, which we could do?
Well, I know that historically, when we have intended to make an expenditure, we've sought to make the appropriation before we sought to consider the motion, which is why I'm sure we have 2018-66 considered on the agenda prior to getting to the motion to authorize the administration to seek bids, so that we're not passing a motion on something that hasn't been appropriate. That has been the order we've tended to do this. I understand your apprehension, and I want to make sure that you're satisfied before you vote. So if that means tabling so that this can be studied further, well, certainly I see your point. And as far as the actual order of going about doing it.
Well, if we table the actual motion to go out for bid, I'm comfortable authorizing ordinance, which one is it? The the appropriations, item F, 2018-66, which actually, how are we on that when the Bureau of Workers' Comp? Oh, no, that was the intervention grant. We're going, okay. 2018-66, if everyone is satisfied in their questions, authorizing the supplemental appropriations and authorizing the transfer of funds from the general fund to the street and fire pension funds on emergency. I will make that motion
Okay.
so that we are prepared. I'm also very sensitive to the fact that with tariffs and everything coming down the pipe, we may want to purchase something a little earlier, maybe less costly, but we have to know what our operations are in terms of what our revenues are expected to be, so, thank you. Okay, so I made that motion on emergency.
Okay, very good. Do we have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by Mrs. Pardee, second by Mrs. Cameron. Is there any discussion on this motion? Okay, and then this is on emergency, so was your motion on emergency? Okay, very good, all right.
As they stand, actually, the appropriations as they stand.
Even without the numbers.
Because he said the 95,000 could wait. The real estate amount wasn't necessary right now.
Okay. It's that, I thought the numbers didn't add up, that's why the numbers didn't add up. That's why I was. Yeah, okay.
Thanks, Nick.
Very good. Well, if there is no further discussion, then Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll on the suspension of the rules?
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Mr. Weissman?
Aye.
Mr. Sims?
Aye.
Mrs. Pardee?
Aye.
Mr. Erdl?
Aye.
Mrs. Cameron?
Aye.
Mrs. Weiss?
And then on the main motion.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Mr. Weissman?
Aye.
Mr. Sims?
Aye.
Mrs. Pardee?
Aye.
Mr. Erdl?
Aye.
Mrs. Cameron?
Aye.
Mrs. Weiss?
Okay. Ordinance passed. Next item is item G, motion authorizing the finance director to enter into a banking services contract with Dollar Bank. Mr. Goff, you have the floor.
As I informed council at the couple prior meetings, we were going out to request proposals from banks for professional services for their banking and to look to change where our checking accounts are currently at. We had received back last a week ago Friday the responses. We had only received responses back from 3 banks. We were told by Citizens Bank that they were going to decline to make a proposal. And then the other local banks went out to myself to deliver the copies of the proposal in person to Ohio Savings Bank, Huntington, which did respond back, Third Federal, they did not respond back, Ohio Savings did not respond back, and PNC did not respond back. Of the 3 that did respond back, I want to thank Rita Drew, our Deputy Finance Director, for consolidating their lengthy proposals into a concise report for you guys. Basically, the recommendation is that should go to Dollar Bank, and if there are any specific questions, I'll do my best to answer it. Otherwise, a lot of it's referring you back to the condensed version, condensed answers in the memo.
This is excellent. Thank you. It's great information. KeyBank was kind of non-responsive in some situations.
Yes, they were.
Is that where money is right now?
Right now, we're currently with Huntington.
It's good. And your recommendation is Dollar General?
Yes, that's.
Dollar Bank.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Oh,
Well, Dollar General, we're actually going to save some money.
Dollar Bank.
So we're with Huntington now, they didn't respond?
No, Huntington did respond back, but Dollar responded back better when you look at the numbers and a lot of the ways in which they responded. We felt more comfortable in terms of the fact how much banking is a relationship situation. Kind of impressed with Dollar took the time, unlike any of the others, to actually come in person and to give their proposal to us and to meet with us. None of the others, all the others that responded back came back. It was FedEx and UPS. So I mean, part of it is the relationship aspect of it, and part of it is also just looking at the numbers. The numbers say you go with Dollar as well.
And where's the closest branch?
Closest Dollar, the other side of McDonald's.
Great.
So we were really trying to target that no matter where we go, if we heard a response from someone who wasn't here, we would still listen to it. No, we didn't get the responses back, even though we posted to Ohio Municipal Union, Ohio DFOA. But our preference was clearly somebody with a local branch ready to meet the vicinity.
Very good. Questions for Mr. Goff? Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion here.
Very good.
Motion authorizing the finance director to enter into a banking services contract with Tullamore Bank.
Second. Okay. Motion by Mrs. Purdy, second by Mr. Erdl. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Mrs. Thomas, you call the roll.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Mr. Wiseman?
Aye.
Mr. Sims?
Aye.
Mrs. Purdy?
Aye.
Mr. Earl?
Aye.
Mrs. Cameron? Aye. Mrs. Weiss?
Very good, motion passes. Next is ordinance 2018-67, authorizing the mayor to enter into contract for public health services with the Cuyahoga County Board of Health for 2019-2020. This is on urgency. Kelly, do you want to speak on this?
I'm sure. This is our annual contract with the County Board of Health that we have to approve for our various services that they provide us. This year, they are going to have a 2-year contract as opposed to 1 year. So it's for the year 2019 and the year 2020. And there were a few changes in the fees, which you can see I lined out on the ordinance, what we paid last time, and the new figures are listed in section 2.
Don't have quite a bit in the second year.
And we are required by the state of Ohio.
We have to. Could you ask them one question? On page 13 of what they provided us under organizational support services, I always like to look at this because I like to see how many hours University Heights residents actually use these services. And by far the largest, 190 hours, is in something called administrative services, program inquiries and responses. And that includes Board of Health infrastructure, grants, contracts, other related fiscal support. I'm just wondering what that 190, what is that? Because that is the largest bank of hours our residents apparently are using this for.
I'll see if they can provide us with some information.
That's great, and just email it.
Okay.
Thank you.
If I recall, I think we asked for that when we had it here.
Do you remember what it was?
I think it's when people call in and they give information and advice regarding any health issues, like if you were to call in and ask them about where to get TB shots or.
But those are in other places. That's the only thing. Everything else, it's like if you're going for health or clinic or childhood or things like that, they're all spelled out.
Right.
Looking at the documentation, you'll note that there's an asterisk at the end of those lines. When you flip, loops into the next page, is identifying that being exactly what Councilman Cameron is saying that those are. Those are largely meetings, phone calls, and other administrative matters that are regarding that type of category.
That asterisk is after everything. That just describes that everything they're giving us is program inquiry and response hours in those separate acts. You see how it's prevention and wellness? That's just a definition for what the number means. It's not a definition for what organizational support services, administrative services means. So, thanks. Yeah, not to belabor this.
Anyway, I would like to note for the record that I want to thank Mrs. Thomas for tracking down this particular contract and making sure that it got on the agenda for this meeting. I did take a meeting at the County Board of Health a few weeks ago with other mayors and managers. We knew this contract was coming out, and I knew that we should be looking for it, but I had not seen it, and for whatever reason, it got here, it escaped my attention initially. And in any event, Kelly knew to find it, tracked it down, got it from the Board of Health, and got it on our agenda for today. So thank you, Mrs. Thomas.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, so are there any further questions or issues with regard to this particular ordinance and contract? Okay. Is there a motion?
Sure. I move that the city adopts ordinance 2018-67, authorizing the mayor to enter into contract for public health services with the Cuyahoga County Board of Health for 2019 and 2020 on emergency. Why do we have to do this on emergency?
There's a deadline.
There you go. It's on emergency.
We have a motion by Mrs. Cameron, a second by Mr. Sims. Is there any further discussion on the motion? If there is none, then Mrs. Thomas, we call the roll on the suspension of the rules.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Mr. Weissman?
Aye.
Mr. Sims?
Aye.
Mrs. Purdy?
Aye.
Mr. Ertl?
Aye.
Mrs. Cameron? Aye. Mrs. Wise?
Very good, and on the main motion.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Mr. Weissman?
Aye.
Mr. Sims?
Aye.
Mrs. Purdy?
Aye.
Mr. Ertl?
Aye.
Mrs. Cameron? Aye. Mrs. Wise?
Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. And thank you, Mrs. Thomas. Okay, next item is item I, motion authorizing the administration to seek bids for 3 new vehicles for building and housing inspectors. I know we discussed that in reference to the item F. Is there motion or discussion at this juncture?
Mayor, I would move to table this item.
Very good. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Pardee, second by Mr. Brock. Any discussion? Okay. If there is none, Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Mr. Weissman?
Aye.
Mr. Sims?
Aye.
Mrs. Purdy?
Aye.
Mr. Ertl?
Aye.
Mrs. Cameron?
Pass.
Mrs. Wise?
Itemized at your right table. Okay. Next item on the agenda is a motion to hold an executive session immediately following this regular meeting for the purpose of discussing personnel, legal, and or real estate matters. Now, we did discuss some real estate matters in a previous executive session. Earlier, is there a motion with respect to either personnel or legal matters that anyone on the council would care to discuss?
Any personal matter.
Okay, yeah, very good. So, do we have a motion then to hold an executive session immediately following regular meeting for the purpose of discussing a personnel matter?
I mean, so move.
Okay, very good. So, okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Sims. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Cameron. Mrs. Thomas, will you call the vote?
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Mr. Weissman?
Aye.
Mr. Sims?
Aye.
Mrs. Purdy?
Aye.
Mr. Ertl?
Aye.
Mrs. Cameron? Mrs. Wise?
I would at this time accept the motion to sing happy birthday to Councilman John.
All right. All right. Ready?
Please don't sing.
Seriously?
Seriously.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear John. Happy birthday to you.
I wish it didn't come true. We still have executive session.
Oh. Very good, very good. Okay, we have director's reports, finance.
I've got a couple of items, a lot kind of relate to the budget in a couple different ways. I've been in contact with our broker for health insurance, and we're expecting to get quotes back Friday, and we'll be able to move forward from there. Right now, there's just a temporary holding item in the budget in terms of percentage increase for those. The audit that the mayor had commented on briefly earlier. Though we had the exit conference on the 30th last week, requiring final approval from the Auditor State's Office because we go after the CPA firm. And that will happen after a desk review from the Auditor State's Office, which I have not been informed whether that's been completed or not. It may very well have already happened. But there is a window 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after every election where they do not release any audits. So not until the Auditor State's Office actually releases the audit is it truly final. In terms of the budget, as we mentioned before, there's a draft for operating expenses. Waiting to hear back if there's any last minute changes by department heads. And I'm working on a draft for revenue and recently put together the capital budget draft. And the October financials we're working on. We're sort of trying to get that done tomorrow. I do have September and August ones that I would expect you to receive via email tomorrow. So those did not make the agenda for this meeting. That's all I have unless there are any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Dow?
Yeah, I'd like to know how many surprises have you had since you started this job?
I've had more than a few, more than I anticipated when I started the job.
Okay, just one review, then keep it count.
All right.
I do have a question.
Okay.
Seriously,
That'd be
about the audit interview process. I thought in the past that we had been invited to attend the exit interview.
I did send out an email myself, inviting all of council to the exit conference. It was on very short notice due to the deadline that we had with the Auditor State's Office to have it completed by Wednesday of last week.
Okay.
So it was on very short notice, but there was an email that went out a few days in advance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dow. Any other questions for Mr. Dow? Very good. All right, Director Blanc with McConville.
Very briefly, Mayor, I want to make council aware that earlier this year, the Ohio legislature passed House Bill 312, which requires all municipalities to enact a credit card use policy before February of 2019. And the legislation requires the credit card use policy to have particular characteristics such as the officers or physicians authorized to use the credit card account, the types of expenses for which a credit card account may be used, the procedures for the acquisition, use, and management of a credit card account, procedure for submitting itemized receipts to the fiscal officer, procedure for credit card issuance, reissuance, cancellation, process for reporting lost or stolen credit cards, the political subdivision's maximum credit limit, and acts and omissions that qualify as misuse of a credit card account. So in connection with House Bill 312, we're going to be reviewing our existing credit card use policy in all likelihood, beefing it up a little bit, and we intend to report back to you on the progress we make on that.
Very good.
I have a question for Luke. Last week when I was at the Municipal Finance Officers Association conference, we were hoping the Ohio Municipal League would have a draft policy. Are you aware of anybody who's done a draft policy yet for the House bill?
I have not seen a draft policy. I've seen some emails that have been prepared by some of the big players highlighting some of the aspects of the bill, but I have not seen a draft policy.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. McConville. Any further questions for Mr. McConville? Mrs. Cameron?
Yes. Mr. McConville, I hope you received my message.
I did, and for benefit of council members, Councilwoman Cameron called me regarding the proposed Citizens United ordinance that Scott Walker had previously been trying to promulgate for the ballot, and proposing that instead of presenting it as a potential ballot initiative, we simply present it as an ordinance, and I will, that ordinance essentially has already been drafted because we had already done the work on that, so I will make a point of getting that over to the mayor and asking him to include it on the next agenda.
Thank you so much.
Very good. Thank you, Mrs. Cameron. Thank you, Mr. McConville. Any further questions for Mr. McConville? Very good. Seeing none, thank you, Mr. McConville. Public safety, police, Chief Rogers.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Tonight I'd like to report on 3 items. Before I start my report, I would like to reiterate what the Mayor did already acknowledge. It's worth mentioning, especially in light of recent tragedies, that the police department works very closely with the community, various organizations throughout the community to ensure that safety and security needs are met, and we do everything that we're capable of doing to ensure the safety and security needs of different, again, various organizations throughout the city. So this is something that historically has always been done, and will continue to do so to ensure the safety throughout the city. First item I'd like to report on is just a hiring update. We're still completing background checks. One of the candidates' background check was completed. They are in the post-conditional offer process of the hiring process, and hope to be finishing that very soon. So we could likely at this rate have a new hired officer very soon. Again, we're looking to hire 4 individuals, 4 officers, and we still have to complete some other background checks at this time. Second item to report on is another community engagement opportunity that the police department had with the assistance of Mike Cook. We were able to have our officers equipped with candy over Halloween, and they did a tremendous job with engaging with the community during that event and passed out candy accordingly. Feedback was very positive from the officers as well as those that they interact with in the community. So, again, going forward, something else we can build on and continue to do as a tradition of the police department.
Seemed very well received.
And third item is pertaining to the traffic signal on South Green at Heinens. There's construction in that area. There's likely to be construction in that area for the next week. We did get complaint about obstruction, visibility obstruction from vehicles exiting the private lots on the South Green. So historically, that traffic signal goes on flash at 7 p.m. We're just going to maintain the traditional 24/7 flash where it's going to cycle through all of the signals instead of just being on a red and yellow flash. The issue was vehicles were having trouble getting out of those lots because of construction equipment when it was on flash. So we're just going to, probably through the week, it'll just be on the traditional cycle. And that concludes my report.
Okay. Thank you, Chief Rogers. Does anybody have any questions for our police chief? All right, very good. Thank you, Chief. Next up is Fire Chief Perko.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Just a few items to report on. One of them being the unfortunate event, the house fire that the Mayor spoke on. Fortunately, there were no injuries in that fire, both with the residents that were inside at the time or any of the firefighters that responded. The investigation has been completed on it. We finished the final draft of the report today, and the final copy should likely be out tomorrow after review. I wanted to thank Chief Rogers and his police department formally for all their assistance at that fire. They helped us out tremendously with traffic control, and with assisting with getting the residents out before our arrival. Also, our mutual aid partners. It was exceptionally busy in the greater Heights-Hillcrest area during the time of that fire. So getting the additional resources we needed was challenging, but possible. So fortunately, our neighbors were there to help us assist in extinguishing the fire. And then I'd like to just echo on what the mayor said to thank the greater community for all their support and outreach. All the residents in that area were very supportive to those families. allowed us to conduct our investigation and interviews inside their homes, and it was very touching. We finished hydrant flushing next week, picked up all the signs, so there'll be hopefully no more inquiries about my water's brown. And
We got a few of those.
yeah, we should be good till next spring on that. We'll be hosting our last CPR class for this year on November 29th at the library. And then I would also like to recommend that the community checks their batteries and their smoke detectors. We recommend doing that each time we change the clocks. I'm going to work with Mr. Cook to get some information up on social media and our webpage too about different types of detectors and how often you should replace them. That's my report.
Very good, thank you, Chief Perko. Does anybody have any questions for Chief Perko?
Thank you, Mayor.
Mrs. Purdy?
Just curious, the CPR courses are free, correct?
Correct.
And how many have you had so far?
This will be our fourth one this year.
What kind of turnout are you getting for that?
Between 20 and 30 registers
Each time?
each time.
Great, thank you. That's good.
It's been very good.
Yeah, I'm impressed. Good, thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mrs. Purdy. Thank you, Chief Perko. Any other questions for Chief Perko? All right, seeing none. Chief Perko, thank you very much. Oh, is there one? Oh, okay. Next, service, Mr. McCory.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to report that our household hazardous waste and shredding collection event went very well over this past weekend. Friday and Saturday we collected items. Saturday we had the shredding truck here. And despite some inclement weather, it went very well. Second item, leaves. We are currently on our 6th pass around the city, so we've gone everywhere 6 times already collecting leaves. They've been a little light, so we're moving pretty well. However, I expect that this week with the landscapers getting what came down over the weekend out, and with the leaves finally starting to come down, we'll slow down a little bit. But we are out there doing that, so keep raking the leaves out. Tree pruning, as I mentioned earlier, we are currently pruning, which is basically 40 tree removals in the Raymont, Washington area. We sent out notices. Thank you, Mike Cook, for notifying the residents that we'll be removing those trees. I believe we only heard back from 3 or 4 residents with concerns about trees, but that is also going well. They have until the end of December to complete that one. Last was the tree planting. Trees have been purchased. They're currently stored here in the city. The tree contractor started planting those trees today. I believe he got about 15 to 20 of them in the ground. We have 80 of them to plant, so sometime in the next 2 weeks he should be completing his work.
Excellent.
And that's my report.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. McCory. I do have a question. We had an inquiry today from a resident who wanted clarification as to whether residents should be raking their leaves or blowing their leaves into the edge of the tree lawn, or whether it was permissible to blow them into the street outright.
And it is illegal to blow them into the street outright. We have an ordinance which prohibits placing your leaves in the street. Okay, so yes, we should do our best to notify everybody that we know that is putting leaves in the street not to do so. In the past, I've passed out copies of our ordinances to some of the houses that I see with that type of a situation.
It does appear that it may be called for again in certain circumstances or situations. At least the complaining residents seem to think that everybody but her was doing it the wrong way. So, very good. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. McCartney?
I have a question. It's unrelated to the leaves. It's about paint. And I know you've spoken on it before. How do you dispose of latex paint?
Latex paint, you have to open up the can and either just let it sit like in a garage against your wall or someplace dry and let the paint dry, or you can add items to it. They make absorbent material, they make things like sawdust, kitty litter, things like that. You can mix it with it. Let the paint dry. Once it's dry, you can discard it in your regular garbage.
Okay.
Thank you. Please don't put it into the garbage wet though, because when we pack the truck out on the street, it squeezes the paint out of the truck and it drips on the streets. So, with that, we're really hoping people will dry it.
Very good. Mr. Earl?
Yes, the leaves are coming down late this year, right?
It appears.
Yeah, so, how late might you go? People are asking me, they're all concerned about it being cut off.
Rake your leaves out as soon as you can, and as soon as we can get there, we will get them. Do not wait till the last day to rake your leaves out, and I will provide you with what the last day will be, because it's gonna be weather dependent.
Yeah.
If we get snow and ice that comes down and covers those, we won't be able to collect them. So the sooner you get them out, the better off we all are. Generally, we go the first week of December.
Generally, I know. We should collect the bags though.
Every collection day, if you're bringing the rubbish day, we collect the bags, yes.
Does anybody have any further questions for Mr. Tullamore? As long as you're up here, thank you once again for your part in Thursday evening's presentation on the limits of the site.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you. Next item is the building commissioner's report. I began reading his report in connection with the Tullamore House. I will resume it. This is from Mr. McReynolds. I've had preliminary discussions with the designer who is looking to locate a takeout restaurant on Cedar Road near South Taylor. I will provide more information once a plan has been submitted. A new restaurant, the Bibi Bob Restaurant, has opened at 13930 Cedar Road. This is an Asian-style restaurant with the concept of building your own rice bowl with your favorite ingredients. At the Belfair Community, footers have been poured for the new building G. Work is continuing to progress, even with the rain we have been having, and they are looking to erect walls to work indoors during the winter months. The expected completion date is over a year away. The rental program has been strengthened by the addition of a new inspector who started Monday, October 29, 2018, and a new secretary who starts today. We hope to have our second inspector on board by November 19, 2018. Submitted by James McReynolds. Okay. Then next is the report of the city engineer. Mr. Cheney could not be here this evening. I cribbed from his report the section on the chairlift because I thought it was that important to say in the beginning, but to reiterate, the bid documents have been prepared. It's going out to bid on November 8th and the 15th. The pre-bid walkthrough will be with the contractors on November 20th at 10 a.m., bid opening on the 26th at noon, and the construction schedule will be determined after that. Item 2, the Cedar Green Crosswalk project is 50% completed. Most of the outside lanes of the Green Road crosswalks and one half of the Main Tree crosswalk is installed. The contractor will be completing the remainder of the work by Tuesday of next week. It was originally scheduled to be completed by the end of this week, but with weather considerations, he's a little bit behind. Number 3, excuse me, the Groveland Waterline project is in its final phase. The work remaining is to install new house connections to the new water main in the street and to remove the temporary hoses. Approximately 45 of the 60 houses will be hooked up by the end of today. The contractor is estimating all house connections will be completed by the end of this week, weather permitting, and the road will be restored by the end of next week, again, weather permitting. I think it is safe to say the contractor will be off the road by Thanksgiving, November 22nd. Item 4, 2018 road improvement program. The contractor is working on the final closeout items of work, waiting on dry weather to install the pavement markings at the City Hall parking lot and at the Cedar Taylor intersection. Hopefully this will be completed by the end of the week. And that concludes the city engineer's report. Next item is item G, communications and civic engagement. Mr. Cook.
Good evening, everybody. All right, the Civic Awards, as the mayor said, ticket sales are going well, but there's still room for some more folks. So if you haven't bought your tickets yet, or if you know people who are interested, please have them buy tickets on Eventbrite or they're not that computer savvy, they can call City Hall and Rachel and I will take care of it for them. What I like about the Civic Awards so far, they haven't had something happen yet. But I think it's starting to do its job, which is kind of, it's a small part to bring the city closer together. You see some of the responses on Facebook from people who have been nominated and their friends who see that they've been nominated or rather that they will be receiving awards. They're very excited. Jim Lentine, for example, he came to City Hall today. He's buying 11 tickets for the event. And there was an opportunity for him to meet the mayor. I just think things like that, it's building community. It's going with the slogan that we're so much more than a home. It's not just a bunch of houses and a couple businesses. I mean, it's a community. And again, the civic engagements or the civic awards aren't going to, change everything, but it's a step in the right direction and it has a good vibe so far. And I think we're on our way to a really, really nice event on the 16th. Let's see, the 14th. 14th. Yeah, I was looking at that too. I'll skip to what's happening on the 16th. The 16th, as the mayor suggested, is we have an opportunity to distribute turkeys, frozen turkeys, to people in need. The folks at 888 Ohio Comp have generously donated 150 turkeys. They're going to be arriving on the 16th between 1 and 3. So we're going to advertise them as we're starting at 3. But if they get here early, obviously we'll start passing them out early. We're teaming up with our friends at Jesu to help get these turkeys out. In worst case scenario, if we have turkeys left over, we have a contingency plan that we're just working on. So none of these turkeys that are so generously being donated are going to go to waste. Our goal is to get them to people who need them over the holidays, and hopefully we'll be able to do that on the 16th. Working closely with Susan Drucker on Small Business Saturday, and just through the newsletter, through social media, through the website, and I think especially for our first year, I think this is also on its way to being a very successful event. So you can keep an eye out for the newsletter, which will be going out next week on the social media website, and posters all over town. Again, it's what Susan said. It's going to be a really nice event. Finally, the mayor also mentioned the draft rebranding. There's just ways you should use the logo, how much space should be around, just the details of do's and don'ts. So we're finalizing that, and once it's finalized, it's going to get us that much closer to a redesign of the website. And I'm hoping to have it up by the first of the year. It'll probably be earlier than that. Just the colors and the specific fonts. One feature we are going to add, again, I know we've had this conversation about adding some features, is I want to make sure that we have a bio of the mayor and all the council members. I know I've talked to a couple of council members who've got me a bio, but if you want to give me something, 50 to 100 words by the end of the month, and that'll be part of the website. I want everyone's bios to be the same, so I'll add fluff to the short ones, I'll add the long ones, and they'll all be at the same amount. And also, I have pictures of some of you. There are pictures currently on the website. If you're happy with that picture, we'll use that one. If you want to send me another picture or an updated picture, I'll use that as well. And that is, I'm sorry, one final thing we talked about leaves earlier. I've added that to the Facebook site during the meeting, so hopefully we'll see less of the leaves blowing into the street. Unfortunately, that is only down on the Facebook site, your singing from earlier, which already has 16 views and 3 likes, but let's see if we can get it. I'm sorry, any questions?
Oh, yes, any questions for Mr. Cook?
I just want to tell you that a communications director told me, I won't name that person, your guy is killing it about all the Heights Observer coverage. That person was so impressed. Just so impressed. So great job.
Each issue, I think, since I've been here in August, I'm working to make sure that get more and more coverage each issue, and it gets further and further up in the paper. My ultimate goal is to have one issue, if it's December, if it's January, where there's more University Heights stories than Cleveland Heights stories. And when that happens, if that happens, I'll bring a copy into the council meeting.
that you described for the turkey giveaway,
Yes.
do you have any estimate now of how many of those turkeys have been reserved, or are they being reserved? And then the second part of the question is, are you working with the Heights school system? You mentioned Jason.
Right. Yeah, they mentioned the school system. I'm going to follow up, and either Jason's going to reach out to them or I'll reach out to them. Yes, I want to make sure that we can have as many reserved as possible. Again, I don't think there's going to be a huge problem of people who don't need turkeys coming out. I don't expect people pulling up in their Lexuses from other cities and getting turkeys. But yeah, the goal is to get turkeys to people who need them. And yeah, I will follow up on that in some way.
Okay. And the reason that I mentioned that is because 150 turkeys, that's quite a number.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that there are probably families in the Heights schools that could utilize those. But if not, I'm also familiar with another program that will be distributing turkeys on November 17th.
Okay.
From 11 to 1 p.m. And I can give you the location. It's actually at 6 community centers, but all of those centers are included. But if you have turkeys that are not made available, in our community, then that would be one possible outlet for, getting rid of the other turkeys. So
Yes.
I can get that information.
Please. Yeah, if I don't hear from you by lunch tomorrow, I'll shoot you an email and we'll make sure that happens.
So why don't you do that? Because I don't think we've ever had an email exchange, so I really don't have you in my contact list.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Wiseman.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I'd like to just echo the point that Mr. Sims was making. So people see the word free turkey, they come and they get free turkeys.
Mm-hmm.
They don't say, oh, well, that's for people who don't have turkey, so I'm not going to go and get a turkey. I think it would help you to do some reconnaissance first to see if there's a way to sort of find people who really actually need a turkey.
Right.
I think working through the school is a brilliant idea because teachers certainly know who has trouble. But I think you're going to have people lining up at the door whether they can afford a turkey or not. A free turkey is a free turkey. So I think our goal isn't to get rid of the turkeys.
Right.
It's to get them to people who might not be able to afford a turkey. So I think it's fantastic and a great idea, but I just be careful.
No, you're absolutely right. Where you're getting concerned is you want them to get into the hands of people who need them, and I'm trying to be careful with the phrasing you use because obviously you don't want to check IDs or check tax returns of people, but you want to make sure that obviously James, you suggested that they can get some families who need them. We'll reserve those turkeys for the school district, and any idea that anyone has, but getting these turkeys into the right hands, people who need them. I'm all yours.
The county might be a good place to talk to because they may have an idea of residents who might.
That's much too broad.
I'm sorry?
That might be too broad.
I'm talking about the city. In any case, this isn't something to solve now. I just want to put the bug in here that I think people have no shame when it comes to free turkeys. So I think if we can find people who actually need them, I think that would be fantastic.
Okay. I also don't want to stigmatize anyone for taking a turkey.
I'm sorry?
Well, I don't want to stigmatize anyone for taking a turkey either.
Not at all. Not at all.
Right. It's a fine line. I get what you're saying.
No, they're all excellent points, and we will. It's the first time we've ever done this, as far as I understand. So we will do our very best to reach out to as many different groups as possible to get them to people who.
I think this is a fantastic venture. I really appreciate your efforts. I'm glad that these people picked us. I'm glad the city's really willing to step in and do it. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, the only thing I'm not clear on, I understand the turkeys are coming between 1 and 3. What time is the helicopter getting here?
It's funny you say that. I bought a T-shirt for the event. We were in the WKRP 1978 turkey drop. That actually arrived today.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic.
Anything else?
Anything else?
How's my scarf on?
next up is economic development. Susan Drucker.
Mayor and council members. The economic development webpage is active now. We have 2 links. Right now we have an available spaces link and then the business directory. We are going to take the business directory in a little bit different direction than what I originally was planning on. So we did the directory's been updated, but then as we received our first quote for just the layout, just with the price, we felt that we could save money with this new vehicle we have in a city magazine. We'd be duplicating a lot of the same information. So we're going to incorporate the business directory into the city magazine. And through the layout, printing, and postage, a conservative estimate is we'll be saving approximately $7,500 on that alone. So, and then this is something that even with the new residents, we can keep the extra magazines that we have to still keep that business directory part. And then online, the business directory will continuously be updated throughout the year as I'm notified of space becoming available, or if a business goes out of business, or we get a new business. So we just felt that we really want to utilize this new city magazine to its fullest. And so that will be in the first edition, which will be going out end of February or beginning of March. So it'll just be a part of the magazine, and it'll be the first edition, but we'll use that vehicle. I did attend the panel discussion hosted by Dollar Bank with small businesses and resources to capital. The event was attended by approximately 20 small businesses, so they had a nice turnout. I'm following up with Dollar Bank then. I'm meeting with them this week to meet with some representatives as to what type of small business incentives maybe I could work with the bank to offer businesses in University Heights. So we're following up on the panel discussion and kind of taking it a step further. That panel discussion was open to other cities, but this, my meeting with them is really to focus on what special programs we can offer to our businesses here. In addition, I'm working on starting to work on creating a storefront renovation program for our city. I have been approached by 2 different businesses, one who wants to do a possible expansion, another one who is discussing a building refacade. Both businesses have inquired about any incentives that the city offers. So there's 2 ways to go about that. One is with that community development supplemental grant that was going to originally be used for the chairlift, but it would have taken too long. I'm going to submit an application to try to get some seed money to start a program, and then we have to create to see how we can generate revenue to keep that program going. And then secondly, I'm going to be meeting with Councilman Rock to get his professional opinion about some things about helping to create that storefront renovation program and see what we can offer our businesses here. I also attended a zoning conference this past Friday that was offered through the American Planning Association, which was perfect timing since Patrick and I have been working on the current zoning code, focusing on the Chapter 9, which is our mixed use chapter. We're either creating a new chapter for the mixed use, in particular the University Square area, or possibly doing an overlay. So when we have more information on that, I'll be bringing that back to you. And then also I'll be attending on November 19th a workshop on community reinvestment areas. So I'll be going to that, and I'll be able to report at the next meeting on that. Healthy Hair Solutions took one of the 2 spaces left over in the Silsby Center across the street. And then we had 3 remaining spaces in 2245, which is where the annex is. They had 3 locations that had been vacant. 2 of those spaces have recently been, they signed leases, so we'll have new, those spaces will be filled as well. And then I do want to thank Mike Cook. He's been great with getting out the promotional pieces for our Small Business Saturday. As we had 30 businesses that are going to participate, so we really want to help promote them in this next month. You'll see a sign that Chief Rogers is going to put up. I don't know if he's going to put it up, but he'll have somebody put it up to announce the Small Business Saturday and really push to shop local for that November 24th date. And that's my report.
Excellent, thank you, Mrs. Drucker. Are there any questions for Susan Drucker?
I have a request.
Oh, okay. Mrs. Cameron?
Yes. Could you speak with your partner, Mr. Patrick, and ask him if it would be possible for him to seek a grant that is similar to one that's been offered through Future Heights? Well, it's a Cleveland Heights grant that they received to operate a program about leadership.
Yeah, we can look into that.
Yeah, and if you just go to the Future Heights website, you'll see that they have a program. And it was about leadership, and it was seeking to encourage people in the community to come up with ideas that could be implemented for $1,000 or less. And I started to sign up for it, but I realized it wasn't for me because it was for Cleveland Heights.
Well, we'll look into that.
Okay. All right, very good. Thank you, Mrs. Cameron. Thank you, Mrs. Drucker. Next up is community development. Mr. Urban-Meyer's class this evening, but I have his report. First item, the second CDSG public hearing was held last week. Initially, the intention was to apply for the new chairlift in City Hall. However, in the interest of time, getting the chairlift installed as soon as possible, the city will be paying for the new chairlift itself. Instead, the city's CDSG application will be for $50,000 to launch a storefront renovation program. Susan Drucker and I will bring a resolution of support and more details about the city's application for council's consideration at the November 19th meeting. Thoughts and feedback are welcome on this application. Please email development@universityheights.com with your thoughts and feedback. Item 2, working with our intern and other city departments, we are considering vendors to bring GIS to the city. It is my hope to have a decision made in the next several weeks to begin mapping data and making it available to the public beginning in early 2019. Finally, I am working with the building department to begin a full review of the city's housing programs in preparation for the creation of a separate housing department. The review is expected to take several months to gather and analyze application, violation, and inspection data. I will update council throughout the review process. Thank you, Patrick Urban-Meyers. And that is the conclusion of our administrative director's reports. So we now turn to reports from standing committees. Building Chairman Mark White.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I sent out a doodle poll. I don't know who, I thought it was all council for a date for a possible public hearing to hear from the residents about how the tenants are and about how the tenant population is to assist the city in putting together its sort of go forward strategy with respect to the building department, housing, and the new hires, and in terms of what inspections / actions we need to take. I'm looking at December 5th. That's the one that date that got a yes from everybody. I haven't heard from a couple of council people, so I'll be talking to everybody about that potential date. That would be a Wednesday, December 5th, for a public meeting. So hold that date open.
Okay.
Please. Other than that, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weitzman. Civic information, Chair Pamela Cameron. Mrs. Cameron.
Okay, I have a lot of little bits and pieces. Essentially, I wanted to alert everyone that we will be asked to participate or asked to endorse an ordinance or amend to move campaign that was brought to our attention by our citizen Scott Walker. Department of Children and Family Services to receive training about child welfare and issues that relate to both the police and the fire people. So that's something coming down, right? And other than that, I have nothing further.
Thank you, Mrs. Cameron. Finance, Mrs. Purdy.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended the October 30th exit interview, and I look forward to when the actual audit information can be made public. It's out of draft stage, but it was a good exit interview. And as has been spoken to, we have good results, considering. Yes. Lucky for us, unfortunate for Mr. Rock and the fire chief, the November 7th meeting, 2 days from now, will now be a finance committee meeting. It will be our first budget meeting. We've been struggling to get the budget on the calendar. I'm thrilled that we'll have this on, and we'll have materials that we can review at that time. So, Kelly, we can probably put out an agenda that just says budget discussion. Simple.
Are we kicking them off the date, or do they have to wedge themselves?
I volunteered, I'll mention in my report.
Yes, they do. And it's unfortunate, I think we could still review some of the information about the fire equipment, and we should. So, but it's less safety committee at this point, it would just be that one agenda item, I think. So, thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Like 7 o'clock Thursday.
Yeah, we hope to have the conference room cleared up.
Wednesday?
Wednesday.
Okay, so thank you. 2 days from now, the 7th.
I'll take care of it.
And you know, we could just plan to meet up here. We're hopeful to have the conference room cleared up by Wednesday night, but, yeah, you know, well, we'll be in the middle.
It'll be one or the other.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Purdy.
Maybe you should tweet where the meeting's gonna be once you get there, so if we're in another part of the building, we'll be able to.
Because it's hard to find, yeah.
That's a good idea.
Next.
Okay, next. Governmental affairs, Michelle Weiss, Mrs. Weiss, do you report?
Thank you, no report.
No report, very good. Recreation Chair, Bill Hurdle, Mr. Hurdle, do you have a report? No report. No report, okay. Safety, Chair John Rock, do you have a report?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you for the warm day wishes. I wasn't expecting that, so.
So you're what, about 24 now?
Close, very close. But yes, so our committee was originally supposed to meet on November the 7th, and I have to convey that I have a scheduling conflict in order for me to be here today. I have to forego Wednesday's meeting because I'm going to be out of town for the next few days for a work function. So it's very important that I was here to vote on some of these issues today, so I did have to move my attendance back today. So we are going to reschedule, and I have a couple of dates here. So there will be a doodle poll. It is out right now for either November 12th, 13th, 20th, or November 21st. Please vote on that on the doodle poll as soon as you can, or let Kelly know as soon as possible, because it's very, very important we reschedule this meeting for the next council meeting so that we could move forward with that discussion. It's very important.
22nd is Thanksgiving.
No, 21st. 12th, 13th, 20th, or 21st
Of November.
of November.
I'm just saying the 22nd of November is Thanksgiving.
Correct. So don't pick 21st if you're not available. If you're available, let us know, because it would be great to get this rescheduled. And I do apologize, but it sounds like we can get the finance meeting underway instead.
That works out well.
I appreciate that.
So that's my report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rock. Service and Utilities, Chairman Stephen Sims, Mr. Sims.
No report.
No report, thank you. And Committee of the Whole, Vice Mayor Susan D. Purdy.
Only a plea from the clerk that if she sends out a doodle poll, please answer it.
Yeah.
Because it makes it really hard to schedule meetings when people don't answer and she has to keep sending or keep keep asking or doesn't get enough response. So please try to answer those as soon as you can. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, we seem to have exhausted the items on the agenda. We do have the outstanding matter to go into executive session over. So at this time, I'd like to thank everyone for attending the meeting this evening. We are not adjourning at this point because we will move out of executive session at some point to formally adjourn. If you wish to stick around, you're welcome to sit downstairs and do so. Otherwise, have a good night, and thank you.